Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing Breaches of the Week. And coming after like the 40-minute Breaches of the Week video last week, this one feels like a vacation, let me tell you. But before we begin, I'd like to thank the following people, and first one up is Barrett Peterson. He sends me stuff pretty much week over week, as do a couple of other people, but I missed mentioning him last week in like the dozen people that sent me information. Barrett, I apologize for that, and thank you for that. And also, big thank yous to Jason Dance, David Walker, and Jacqueline Wolf, some of my other regulars. Thank you all for that. And if you have any information for me and you're not one of those 4 people, please feel free to send it my way, and I will give you a shout out as well. And with that, let's start here in the United States with Brown University. Apparently, basically, they had to disable their systems and cut connections to their data centers after suffering a cyber attack this past Tuesday. Now, the IT staff said the attack focused on the university's Windows-based systems, and so it asked its faculty and staff to switch computers, to switch computers that were running other operating systems, such as Android or iPhone or even Mac operating system. Now, the university's computing and information services staff took, and I quote, a number of aggressive steps to protect the university's digital resources, including shutting down connections to our central data center and systems within it. There were no details surrounding what actually happened here, but malware is suspected given the understanding of what we know. So hopefully Brown University will get back on their feet. Moving across the pond, let's talk about the National College of Ireland, the NCI, and the Technical University of Dublin, obviously also in Ireland as well. In a subsequent update following the April 3rd ransomware attack, faculty and staff were notified that basically the IT staff and external service providers are working on restoring the services. Access to their IT infrastructures were suspended due to this ransomware attack, and the campus building is currently also closed to both students and staff until the IT is restored. So heads up to you if you go to the National College of Ireland or the Technical University of Dublin. Hopefully you guys will get back on your feet real soon. Moving on, I'm talking to you, thieves of Netflix. You may have infected yourself trying to steal Netflix, and here's what's going on. Newly discovered Android malware found in the Google Play Store was disguised as a Netflix tool and designed to actually auto-spread to other devices using WhatsApp auto-replies to incoming messages. Now, researchers at Check Point discovered this new malware disguised as an app called Flix Online and was trying to lure potential victims with promises of free access to Netflix content. Obviously, that's very appealing to many. Now, Check Point researchers disclosed their research findings to Google, who eventually took this down from the Play Store. The article says quickly, so I'm hoping it really is. And the malicious Flix app was only downloaded 500 times, so it was caught fairly early in its proliferation. Unfortunately, it didn't catch on. And so if you are one of those 500 people that downloaded Flix Online or something else that is promising free Netflix, you might want to remove it and possibly wipe your device. Moving on, let's talk about Belden. They're a U.S. manufacturer of network connectivity devices, including things like basic routers, firewall switches, etc., etc. They disclosed that additional data had been accessed and copied when I mentioned them originally in November of 2020. They've now added on to that this additional data is there, and this is related to employees' healthcare benefits and family members also covered under their company plan. In November of 2020, as I mentioned, they disclosed that they had suffered a cyber attack where threat actors had gained access and copied, quote, some current and former employee data, as well as limited company information regarding some business partners. In this new disclosure from a couple of days ago, Belden says that their investigation revealed that the threat accessed further data during this attack than they had originally believed. The data belongs to spouses, dependents, and relatives of current and former Belden employees who received health insurance from the company. Belden states that the health-related information includes names, basically individual names, gender, benefit information, group numbers, coverages, and the relationship to the employee. The company says they do not believe that stolen data included any information related to health conditions or a diagnosis. So hopefully that's true, and hopefully Belden will get back on their feet here. Moving on. Let's talk about LinkedIn. There's a good chance you might be watching or listening to me on LinkedIn, as that's one of my most largest networks in terms of social media. Personal data from more than 500 million LinkedIn users has been posted for sale online in yet another incident of threat actors scraping data from public profiles and basically putting it online for obvious misuse, crime, whatever it is. Now, attackers posted an archive containing data they said include LinkedIn IDs, full names, professional titles, email addresses, phone numbers, and personally identifiable information on a popular hacker forum, according to Cyber News. Now, the LinkedIn incident comes on the heels, obviously, of the Facebook leak that happened in this past week or so of 533 million users. I mentioned that last week. I will actually have an update for you soon, later on in this particular broadcast. Now, let's move on because I want to talk about credit cards from the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, China, Singapore, France, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and Mexico all together. Now, researchers at Group IB this past Thursday said in a blog that user data from the Swarm Shop card shop, which trades in stolen basically payment accounts, was leaked online in March 17th and then posted on a different underground forum that contained 12,344 records from card shop administrators, sellers, and buyers. The leaked data also included victims' nicknames, hash passwords, contact details, history of activity, and current balance. The database also exposed the compromised data that was traded on that website, and this includes 623,036 payment cards basically issued by banks from, as I mentioned, the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, China, Singapore, France, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and Mexico. There were also 498 sets of online banking credentials and 69,592 sets of U.S. Social Security numbers and Canadian social insurance numbers as well. So heads up if you have a credit card, from any one of those countries. Moving on. Let's talk about the European Commission and several other European Union organizations because basically they were hit with a cyber attack in March, according to the European Commission spokesperson. Now, as revealed by the spokesperson, the quote-unquote IT security incident impacted multiple EU institutions, bodies, or agencies' IT infrastructure. Quote, we are working closely with CERT EU, the computer emergency response team for all EU institutions, bodies, and agencies, and the vendor of the affected IT solution. So hopefully we'll figure out who that is, because vendor of the affected IT solution tells me there's probably a third-party hit that's getting them all into trouble. And so we'll see where that goes. I will have an update as soon as I know anything. Moving on, let's head over here to Chicago and talk about the American Society for Clinical Pathology. They disclosed a payment card incident that impacted their customers who entered payment information on their e-commerce website. Basically, their member list includes over 100,000 medical laboratory professionals, clinical and anatomic pathologists, residents, and students. On March 11th of this year, they discovered that attackers might have had access to customers' payment card information, including names, credit or debit card numbers, card expiration dates, and the 3 or 4 digit code on the back of the card. So heads up to you. It'd probably be very easy in a public record search to find you and match you with your credit card, especially if you're on Facebook saying, hey, I'm a clinical pathologist, or on LinkedIn. So heads up to you. Moving on. Let's talk about security firm Certus. They are out of Singapore. About 62,000 emails from the public businesses and customers of Certus basically were exposed. Now, some of these contained NRIC and credit card numbers, and those may have been accessed by cyber criminals. And this is according to a release that they had on April 9th. The Personal Data Protection Commission of Singapore said it is investigating, and here we are. I don't have much more at the moment. Also staying in Singapore, the National Trades Union Congress's Employment and Employability Institute out of Singapore this past Monday reported that the personal data of about 30,000 people who used their services may have been exposed to attackers. Again, the Personal Data Protection Commission is investigating. Don't know much more than that. Also in Singapore, a furniture retailer known as VHive stated that their servers were attacked on March 23rd, and this resulted in customers' personal detail being leaked online. That too is being investigated, and that's all I know. Moving on, let's head on down to Brazil and talk about a fintech company there called IUGU. A serious security breach exposed the information of, it is believed, all customers of IUGU services, which operates in Brazil through automation and financial management systems. Users' personal banking and transaction data was available on an unprotected server for at least 1 hour, and 1.7 terabytes of information was exposed. So if you use IUGU out of Brazil for all of your fintech needs, heads up. Moving on, let's head back to the United States and talk about the Kentucky Unemployment Insurance website, because the Kentucky Office of Unemployment Insurance shut down that site for 4 days starting 12:01 a.m. this past Friday, while it battles a cyber attack that has forced it to reset more than 300,000 PIN numbers to stop essentially criminals from gaining access to accounts and diverting benefit payments. All of the Office of Unemployment Insurance websites and portals were basically taken offline as state IT workers attempted to essentially enhance the cybersecurity capabilities. The operations are slated to go back online at 12 a.m. on April 13th. Until then, state residents will be unable to file new claims or request benefits, but the Office of Unemployment says it will backdate any new claims as needed. So there you go, heads up Kentuckians. If you are unemployed, wait till April 13th. Moving on, let's talk about OnlyFans. You may know them. They are a very popular website. So after a shared Google Drive was posted online containing the private videos and images of hundreds of OnlyFans accounts, a researcher has created a tool allowing content creators to check if they are part of that leak. It is common for people to share OnlyFans content they subscribe to, but what stands out is this leak is a large amount of creators whose private content had been shared all at once, obviously looking like malfeasance. Now, OnlyFans, if you didn't know, is a website that allows content creators to earn money by sharing images, videos, and live streams with fans who pay to subscribe to their content. While OnlyFans is promoted as a way for celebrities and social influencers to share their content, it is also very heavily used to share adult-themed content, which is pretty much what it is at the moment from everything that I understand. And so basically, if you are paying for that content, it may have been exposed for free. So obviously that's a big issue for the creators. So heads up to you, OnlyFans creators. Moving on, let's talk about both platforms, Discord and Slack. These are communication platforms people use personally and in business. While they themselves were not breached, they've got an issue that could actually get you breached, which is why I'm talking about this. So, workflow and collaboration tools like Slack and Discord and some others have been infiltrated by threat actors who are abusing their legitimate functions to evade security and deliver information stealers, remote access Trojans, ransomware, and other types of malware. Now, the pandemic obviously basically created a massive remote work drive, and so a lot of these platforms were adopted in 2020, and so predictably in 2021, this has issued in a new level of cyber criminal expertise in attacking them. This is coming from Cisco's Talos cybersecurity team that basically put out a report on this saying that this is a serious problem. So basically, if you are joining a public Slack channel or a public Discord channel, make sure that when people are sending you things, that they are indeed legitimate. Don't download just every little thing that you have. And because these platforms are encrypted as they are talking, oftentimes they will evade the decryption capability of your firewall, assuming your firewall actually has decryption capability, because there's a lot of you out there that are not running enterprise level firewall. So that's a huge problem. So just be very careful using Slack, Discord, and all of them. I'm a big fan of Slack myself. Moving on, let's talk about Clubhouse. This is the new social media app that is exclusively on the iPhone, although they say Android is coming soon. And the reason why we're talking about them is that the personal data of 1.3 million Clubhouse users has leaked online on a popular new hacker forum, according to a report yesterday from Cyber News. Now, the scraped data from Clubhouse includes names, social media profile names, and other details, quote unquote. Clubhouse did not immediately respond to Business Insider's request for comment. That was basically, they requested this yesterday. Now, as Cyber News reported, the exposed data could enable bad actors to target users through phishing schemes or identity theft. And Clubhouse said on Sunday, basically they pushed back on this, posting on Twitter, and I quote, "Clubhouse has not been breached or hacked. The data referred to is all public information from our app, which anyone can access via the app or our API." And so obviously I think they've got a problem. They really need to lock that API down and not allow that to be scraped. And all they have to do is look at Facebook and the 533 million people that got hit last week, or LinkedIn. And speaking of Facebook, I've got that update for you. I promised you at the beginning of this video / podcast. We have more proof now that Facebook doesn't care about you at all. Now, as mentioned in last week's video, the profile names, email addresses, and phone numbers of about 533 million Facebook users have been circulating publicly online for about a week or so now. It took days for Facebook to actually acknowledge the root cause, an issue the company says it fixed in 2019, but now researchers are saying they knew about similar vulnerabilities for years before this. And this could have been basically, they could have made a massive, far more greater effort to actually prevent this kind of thing, and they simply didn't. Now, at issue here is Facebook's Content Importer. That's a feature that basically goes through your address book, finds people that you know who also use Facebook and connect it. So if you've ever installed the app, it may say, hey, here are friends that, that basically we suggest, and it's because they're combing your address book, they're seeing that phone number or that email address, and they're saying, oh, this person knows this, they're not connected. Now, suddenly you are getting requests for that. So obviously they are data mining your information, and oftentimes you're simply allowing it because you're not checking the permissions. Now, many social networks and communication apps offer some version of this as, basically a quote-unquote social lubricant here, but Facebook's contact import tool in particular has had a known number of problems and supposed fixes over the years. So researchers had already alerted Facebook to similar issues. In 2012, Facebook made changes that resulted in the site's download your information tool leaking phone numbers and email addresses that users had not supplied themselves through the contact import feature. Then a researcher disclosed this issue to Facebook in 2013. In 2018, the Office of Privacy Commissioner of Canada and the Office of Data Protection Commissioner of Ireland investigated these findings. And so Facebook has known for years that this has been a very serious problem. And because their model is basically to hoover up all of your data and sell it, they really haven't been on the ball with fixing it because, quite frankly, it makes them money. And here we are. They don't care about you. You are a commodity. Moving on, let's talk about a company called Uptox. This is a stock app and a brokerage firm out of India. This past Sunday, I guess today, they basically said that their databases, including contact details and KYC, may have been breached. The discount brokerage firm said it upgraded its security systems recently on the recommendations of a cybersecurity firm, basically to hopefully thwart a suspected breach in the past. It also has assured that its clients that their funds and security are protected and maintain and are safe at the moment through this entire stuff. They say that steps were taken after they received emails that were claiming unauthorized access to its databases, and so they are looking into this, and hopefully that's going to be all good. But if you use Upstox out of India, that's UPSTOX, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about Tip City exempted village schools near Dayton, Ohio. Some Tip City exempted village school parents received a letter in the mail this past Thursday about a data breach in January at a law firm that they use in the district. So really, who got hit here was the law firm of Bricker and Eckler that was being used by Tip City exempted schools. And basically they got notified in early February, the school district in early February, and was told that basically a cyber law partner had been hired to examine the contents of the records involved. Information in the records affected basically included students' names, grade point averages, attendance data, prior classes attended, and some official school photographs. Among the information not provided to the law firm by the district was student health information, discipline records, and credit card and bank account information. So your health information, discipline records, and credit cards are okay, but your students' names, grades, grade point averages, attendance data, etc. has been hit. So heads up if you have a child in the Tip City exempted village schools near Dayton, Ohio. And finally, and we've got a couple finalies here, first one I'm going to be talking about is Amazon. I think this is interesting, and my video/podcast yesterday on Saturday was actually about this, but I want to bring this here as well because this is a potential data breach of Amazon that was thwarted. The FBI arrested Seth Aaron Penley, age 28, from Texas the other day for allegedly planning to launch a bomb attack against Amazon Web Services in Ashburn, Virginia. Now, this guy was attempting to buy C4 plastic explosives, and he was buying them from an undercover FBI agent, and he believed that these explosives would be used to destroy this data center and kill off about 70% of the internet. Obviously not how that works. Now, the press release by the DOJ, and I quote, Seth Aaron Penley, 28, was arrested on Thursday after allegedly attempting to obtain an explosive device from an undercover FBI employee in Fort Worth, Texas. He was charged via criminal complaint and made his initial appearance in federal court before U.S. Magistrate Judge Jeffrey Kurtzen, or Kurton, Friday morning. So basically, he's facing up to 20 years in federal prison. Now, basically, this is a huge issue that we have here. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that he basically data breached himself because he basically unfolded this plot out on a forum, an online forum called My Militia, using the moniker Dionysus, and he was turned in by a friend, basically that was concerned that he was actually going to go ahead and blow something up, and sure enough, he actually attempted to get explosives and do just that. So that's obviously a huge, huge problem. We have an issue with extremism. If you want to know my thoughts more on that, please check out yesterday's video or podcast. But that's obviously a huge, huge problem. Moving on, we're actually going to be talking about the Pwn2Own competition, which just went down this past week or so, because this obviously is a huge problem. This is where we are finding the vulnerabilities that cause the data breaches in our life. And during the very first day, this is really quick, but during the very first day of Pwn2Own 2021, contestants won $440,000 after successfully exploiting previously unknown vulnerabilities to hack Microsoft's Windows 10 operating system. The Exchange mail server, if you recall, that has been in the news for weeks after it is believed suspected state-sponsored Chinese hackers have been crawling in tens of thousands of email servers worldwide, Microsoft Exchange email servers, and then the Microsoft Teams communication platform also got hit. Now, the first to fall was Microsoft Exchange in the server category after the DevCore team achieved remote code execution on an Exchange server by chaining together an authentication bypass and a local privilege escalation. This won them $200,000 and 20 Master of Pwn points. Obviously, that's a huge, huge deal, which means we have a vulnerability right now that others may be exploiting that simply haven't disclosed it like other state-sponsored attackers. Now Microsoft knows and can close that. Next up, a security researcher successfully obtained code execution in Microsoft Teams in the enterprise communications category by combining two separate security bugs together and was able to get through. He earned $200,000 and 20 Master of Pwn points as well. And finally, a team earned $40,000 and 4 Master of Pwn points, let's say that fast, after escalating privileges to system from a regular user on a Windows 10 machine while competing in the local escalation of privilege category. So there you have it. This is why we do these things. The concern always is that if these researchers find it, and obviously it makes big news and you win money when you go to Pwn2Own and all that kind of stuff, but who knows what intelligence agencies or other hacker teams are exploiting these to make money above and beyond possibly this. We combat criminal hackers by essentially throwing money at them to turn over these vulnerabilities so they won't use them elsewhere or sell them elsewhere. So good on you, Pwn2Own. But if you're a Microsoft user with Microsoft Exchange, Windows 10, or Microsoft Teams, and that's pretty much everybody here talking to me, heads up to you. You have patches coming and you're going to need to get those going ASAP next round. And finally, let's talk about the U.S. breaches here in the United States for the first quarter, because we have breach victim numbers thanks to a study, and I think this is a really good way to end this. The number of publicly reported breach victims in the U.S. has grown by 564% from the end of basically 2020 to the first 3 months of this year, according to the latest data from the Identity Theft Resource Center. Now, this nonprofit claimed that 51 million consumers were affected by incidents. Again, that's here in the United States. 51 million consumers were affected by incidents in just the first quarter of 2021 versus 8 million in the final 3 months of 2020. However, the volume of breaches only rose by 12%, or 363 known recorded breaches over the same period. Obviously, you heard about most of those, if not all of them, right here every Sunday. Now, the ITRC also claimed this disparity could be explained by the increase in supply chain attacks, where a single breach leads to a compromise of multiple organizations and many more victims that would usually be expected. And that's 100% correct. When we have a company that is catering to thousands of other companies, and then that company gets hit, Now you have thousands of companies affected. That's a supply chain breach in a nutshell. Now, a case in point here is a cyber attack on Excellion. I've been talking about Excellion for months at this point, just letting you know who is disclosing this. And so we had a massive amount of Excellion disclosures, not to mention other supply chains. Last year, the big ones were Blackbaud, SolarWind, et cetera, et cetera. Microsoft was earlier this year. Supply chain attacks also surged by 42% from the fourth quarter of 2020 to the first quarter of 2021, with 27 such incidents affecting 7 million people in the first quarter of 2021, according to this report. Now, previously disclosed supply chain attacks continue to result in new breach notifications, such as the Blackbaud breach that basically led to 62 new notices in the first quarter of 2021. And for months, I have been talking about Blackbaud. As soon as I can find them, I always give you an update on Blackbaud, Excellion, all of these. That is impacting, though, in this quarter, around 146,000 new individuals. Over 12.8 million people and 555 organizations have now been affected by this attack, as first reported in mid-2020. So that's obviously a huge problem. Phishing and ransomware continues to be the top sources of data compromise in the United States, according to this report. And to quote the report, while the number of data compromises is only up slightly, the rise in supply chain attacks is troubling. I completely agree. To continue to quote, supply chain phishing and ransomware attacks reflect a broader trend that cyber criminals want to exploit multiple organizations through a single point of attack. The most important action people can take to help protect themselves is to exercise good cyber hygiene habits. I completely agree. Supply chain is something that we in the cybersecurity community have been focusing on for at least the last 3 to 5 years now. It is being written into NIST as they are improving their cybersecurity standards like 800-171. The Department of Defense has spun up the CMMC that will probably be adopted by the entire federal government, specifically to push certifications for cybersecurity maturity down to the 300,000 companies in the defense industrial base. This is a huge problem, and it's not going away. And oftentimes, if you are a small to mid-sized business, even the massive enterprise ones, because I walk into enterprise organizations all the time, and they also don't do this, although they do it much better than small to mid-size, which is why I'm pointing those out, is that we don't vet where we supply. We have a great sales pitch that says, I'll handle all of your billing for you, just send me the information. But do you send them a questionnaire like the NIST SSP or something along those lines where they have to show that they have actually adhered to a due diligence or will sign off that they actually have a hardened infrastructure for cybersecurity? I bet you didn't do that. Most people don't. That's a huge problem. We need to be vetting our supply chain, because when they get hacked, you get hacked, and it ruins your reputation. It's not just you're out of money. That's a huge problem. And so that is the final thing we're going to be talking about. Please, please, please vet your supply chain. I don't care if it's the janitor. And those were your breaches of the week. Were you affected? Let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.